Good afternoon, howdy, and welcome to Tilson Live. It is Tuesday. It is 2 o'clock. We are live on Facebook, live on YouTube, coming at you like we do each and every single week to talk about all things building on your land. I'm Eric Allard, part of the fourth generation of the Tilson family, joined as I am each and every single week by the great, the marvelous, the wonderful Dawn Dantzler, Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience for Tilson Homes. Good afternoon, Dawn.
Hey, Eric. How's it going?
Wonderful, wonderful. We are in the throes of beginning of fall, so college football is off, dove season is off. I think we're in archery season. Anyway, all the things that people love about fall. Football is rolling, high school football, Friday night lights. So it's a busy time. It's a wonderful time, but also it's time to build houses. That's what we're doing. So we're here to answer your questions about anything and everything that has to do building a custom home on your land. So Tilson has been doing this for over 92 years all over Texas. We can help you with any burning questions you have about the process, about financing, about customization, about what does it even mean to build a home on someone's land? How does that work? Do I sign my land over to y'all? How does the financing work? What about construction? What should I expect? You know, how does the warranty work? But most importantly, Dawn, today we talk about one of my favorite subjects. But before we tell you, we're not telling you yet. We're not telling Dawn's not telling you yet. We're not doing that.
Okay.
I skipped the part of the show where we say, jump into the chat, as Misty has demonstrated. Tell us where you're building from. I'm sorry, where you're building, where you're watching from, what part of the process you are in. Are you just now considering doing this? You know, is this something that you've wanted to do for a very, very long time? Is this something that you've investigated? Maybe you've done this before with us or someone else. Love to hear from you. But dude, drop into the chat where you're watching from, where you're building, what part of the process you are in. We want to hear from you. Any and all questions that have to do with building a home on your land, or just the building process, home building, real estate, interest rates, mortgage in general. We want to talk to you about that. So we want to get your questions answered. We want to be sure that you leave this place better armed to make a great decision for you and your family than when you arrived. And we think that can happen if you hang in here. So with that little tantalizing enticement of jumping into the chat, tell us where you're watching from, where you're building, part of the process you're in. We want to hear from you while Dawn tells us what in the world we're talking about today specifically.
So today we are going to talk about the thing that makes building on your lot the most different from any other way that you may have built, and it's all about the land preparation. So when we're building on your land, you know, we haven't done everything that there's little cookie cutter subdivisions that you see have already done. You know, they've already put 1-2 years worth of land preparation effort into everything before you even see them place the sign. They've already determined exactly where each house is going to be, probably which houses can be built on that property, exactly how they're going to clear. All of that, those things have already been done. Whereas when we're building on your land, we have to kind of figure that out together. And work together. So we're going to walk you through kind of the steps that it takes to do those things.
Beautiful. Yeah, this is the biggest differentiator of build on your lot versus production subdivision. So pay attention to this part. You get a lot out of this. This is a lot of the owner's additional responsibilities that have to be done. This is what's covered in that. And so we want to be sure that everybody has a very good understanding. And if there's any clarifications you need or want or burning questions that we don't answer, which is possible, ask them, drop them into the chat. We want to hear from you guys. If there's something that you're thinking about, there's a real high probability that someone else who's watching is also thinking about it. And it's just too intimidated to ask, although you shouldn't be. But
before we jump to the chat, though, for some reason it is not populating on my end. So I'm going to refresh real quick. I will be right back. Bye.
All right. So while she does that, yeah, like we said, this is all about the developing your land, which is truly what we're doing here. We're developing your land to build a house. So build on your lot is a two-part process. You have you have the home building part, but like Dawn said, in production, all that stuff's already done. We're actually developing your land as part of the process. So a lot of people ask about timeframes. Why does it seem to take so long with the building on your land? It's because a good third of the time is spent getting the land ready to actually build a house on it. All the engineering, all the permitting, all the stuff we're going to talk about today. So I think I've stalled long enough where Dawn is back with us and maybe the chat's populating. And here we are.
All right. So we've got over on YouTube. Hey, Eric and Dawn Farron and Adrian here, Arlington C in Waller County. Still in the process of waiting for all the things to get done, but excited. Thanks for the demo recommendation. We have reached out. Awesome. You guys are
Very
moving
cool.
right along.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're cool.
We got Misty saying hello from Hood County, enjoying our San Jacinto XL. Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We got Denise coming in from Pearland. We have our meeting set for next Wednesday with John in spring to lock down our plan and get the ball rolling, building a Canyon D in Washington County. In
Oh, very
Chapel
cool.
Hill.
Thanks
Awesome.
for
Very
sharing,
cool.
Denise.
We got Leah watching from Sanger, Texas. Just signed a contract to build with Tilson. We are working with Sochi, who has been awesome.
Oh, very
Yay!
cool, Leah. Congratulations.
And Leah's saying she would like to better understand the build process, like rough timeframes and what to expect when.
Okay, we can help you with that.
All right. We got Leah Tom from Austin, Texas, closing on land soon and wanted to learn more. Already been to Tilson to walk through in Georgetown, Texas.
Oh, very nice.
Awesome.
It's a cool spot.
Yeah. We got Steve from Montgomery, Texas. I have land that is a 58-year-old home with a small private lake on it. We plan on tearing it down and rebuilding on site. Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. We do a lot of that.
We got a troublemaker coming in from Karnes County, Texas. Hey, Andy.
What are you doing down south, son? That is fascinating.
We got
Oh,
Janet.
wait a minute. I know what he's doing. As I mentioned,
Hold
hold on. If I had to guess, my guess is Andy is in. Yeah, there are some birds probably being shot at, not necessarily shot. I know my brother shot at.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. We got Janet saying hello from Wiley. Hey, Janet.
Oh, cool. Very nice. Yeah.
And we've got Jen. Hey, from Willis Park. I love watching the Tilson Lives. Oh, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. We're here to teach everybody. All right. So, folks, keep dropping your questions into the chat. We'll answer every one of them. Andy, don't forget the limit is 15 per person per day, 2-day bag limit on your person. Just saying.
I thought you were saying the limit on questions. I'm like, what?
No. Duff. All right. So, anyway, jump into the chat, folks. Seriously, we want to answer all your questions. There are no bad questions. The only bad questions are the questions you don't ask, because that's what we're here to do, is answer them. So please drop them into the chat, and we are going to start our presentation. Dawn, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about a little bit of everything, mostly that land prep stuff that I was talking about. But for those of you who are new here, who might be first-time viewers, we are going to go over real briefly Tilson's history, so you know why we're qualified to talk about what we're talking about. We're going to do an overview of built on your land and what we mean by that. We're going to go through your construction responsibilities, some of the important documents that you're going to need to get started. One of the most important thing, how we get utilities out to the property, and then site access, as well as site planning and preparation. So everything that's happening on that piece of property before we start building your home. So a little bit about us. We have been a company for 90 plus years. We are the most experienced rural home builder in the state of Texas, and we are exclusively built on your land. So we were founded in 1932, Texas family owned and operated for four generations. Eric there is one of the members of the fourth generation, as is Andy, who we're giving a hard time. We have built over 40,000 homes throughout the state of Texas. We build exclusively in Texas, so it is what we know and what we do. And on average, around 10 families per week are moving into their new Tilson home. And what we mean by built on your lot just means it's your lot, your land, your farm or ranch. You know, it could be a retirement or second home site, could be your lakefront property, could be anything, but it's basically having the home of your choice built on your site. So it's property that you already own rather than property that we own. So that's kind of what makes us, most different between, going into one of those planned communities of that. It is your property, which is why some of these things are so different from that other process. So your pre-construction responsibilities, we are here to help our customers and guide you through, answer all your questions, help you as much as we can. But since it is your land, there are some things that you're going to have to do because we just don't have the permission or the rights to do it. The first is requesting a 911 address. So it's really important before any type of work happens on your property that you do get with your county and request that 911 address. It just makes sure that all emergency services know exactly where we are in case something does happen on that property and just kind of sets you up for the future. Utility setups, because it is your property, we're going to need your assistance with this, and you're going to need to establish those accounts. Simply because in a lot of cases, you're needing to grant an easement to that power company to be able to come onto the property and to maintain those power lines. So we're going to need you guys to take care of that since we can't give away your property. Permit application filing. Some counties actually won't allow the builder to file the permit application when they have those. So the property owner is the one who's actually going to need to do that filing. We're going to help you fill out all the paperwork though and guide you through, but we may need you to actually take it down to the courthouse and submit it. Other responsibilities are going to be all the things that aren't included kind of in the base price on our home, because we're not sure what you're looking to do on that property. And we can split these if you want. A lot of these we can take on for you, but we're generally assuming that we're going to have that conversation and decide if you're going to do it or if we're going to do it. And that is things like clearing your site, putting in your construction drives, getting the septic system taken care of, all of those things. We can help you do them or you can do them, but these are just things that are going to need to be kind of discussed and arranged and achieved before we start construction. All right. So before you start building, there's going to be some stuff that we need to go through. And this is just kind of reiterating that. I'm going to start talking about documents, and then Eric will talk about the utilities and site access and the site plan and preparation. So your important documents are really going to fall into these three kind of broad categories. And the first is the deed. We're going to need to know that you own that property, and we have a very strong recommendation that you do get some title insurance when you get that deed. You're going to need your plat and your survey, and that just kind of lays out this is the property and where it is, and a copy of your deed restrictions that you should have gotten when you did purchase that property. So a deed, this is what an official deed looks like. And we do need an actual a deed that is recorded with the county in order for it to be valid. And what we're looking for on that piece of paper is just basically your proof of ownership. So on there, it needs to list out the grantor, which is the person who either sold it or gifted it to you, and then the grantee, who is the buyer. And whatever that deed says, this is the buyer, that is also who's going to need to be on our agreement. So we've got to make sure those two documents match up. It's also going to contain the property description. So it's either going to tell us it is this lot number in this section of this block, or it's going to actually describe out, starting at this point, you're going to go this many feet this way, and just something that describes out exactly what the boundaries of that property are. It may or may not contain the sales price. Sometimes it's in there, sometimes it's not. It's not necessary for it to be in there, but what is absolutely necessary is the seller's signature does have to be notarized. So that we know that this was actually a transfer. We're going to recommend during that process that you do go ahead and secure some title insurance on that when you are securing the property, even if it is a gift. And what title insurance is it's really just an insurance policy that guarantees the chain of legal ownership. So this just make sure that every time that property has exchanged hands, it was done legally, it was done clearly, cleanly, and that there were no pre-existing liens, judgments, or anything that anybody can come back and say, hey, you owe me money because I have a claim on this property. Title insurance is going to protect you from that if you have it prior to actually taking ownership of it. So we recommend that you go ahead and request that policy from your title company as soon as you give them any earnest money for the purchase of the property itself. You just go ahead, open title, and say, yes, I want a title insurance policy.
Yeah, and the good news is if you have a loan on the property and got it that way, like you financed the land, the lender highly likely, almost guaranteed, required that this be done. So if you closed on land that you are currently paying on, this probably happened. So
yeah, absolutely. And then we're also going to need the survey of the property, and then this is just the drawing of saying, hey, here's all the invisible lines that determine the bounds of your property. So the big bold ones those are the actual edges of your property. And that's going to show you exactly where your land ends and your neighbor's land begins. The other thing you are going to want to make sure with your survey is that the actual corner pins on the property have been located and have been flagged, so that there is a visual representation on the property of where the corners of it are. The other thing that you're going to see on that example there is that there's going to be a lot of other lines on the property, just kind of showing us some guidelines of what we can do and where we can build. So you're going to see some building lines, you're going to see easements, you're going to see setbacks. So these are just, setbacks and building lines are things that are established when the property is deeded as residential and saying, hey, you need to build this far back from the street, you need to be this far away from your neighbors, from the edges, and it's just kind of maintaining kind of more boundaries so the houses aren't right on top of each other. So that's something that's going to be indicated in your deed restrictions, but it should also be physically represented on your survey. And the easements, like I was talking about before, these are usually granted to the utility companies and other other state entities, giving them the right to come onto the property and maintain any property lines or things that might be in that area of the property. So you still own it. You still are taking the day-to-day care of it, but it gives them the right to come on the property if they need to do anything with underground power lines or above ground power lines or anything like that. Your survey is also going to give us all the dimensions, and it should also show us your flood zone information. So we're going to be looking for that. And then the most important thing on there is it is going to have a seal from a registered professional land surveyor. And that is what makes it an official survey. And it'll show us here that signature and that was recorded, that we did do that correctly. So that's what we're looking for. The last is, deed restrictions and covenants. So if you are building, depending on where you're building, and particularly if you're building in a, planned community, you're going to be looking at some deed restrictions and some covenants. As you are looking into your property, very important before you purchase it that you do get a copy of any of these and that you do actually read them, because by buying the property, you are agreeing to follow all of the rules that are in those restrictions and those covenants. And what's going to be covered in these is really going to depend upon where your property is located. But it's going to, usually what we see as things like home design requirements. They're going to say it has to be a minimum of this square footage. It has to be a maximum, we'll see maximum heights if we're in areas where there's lake view property or things like that. That's also going to establish what any required materials might be. What type of siding can we use? What type of roofing can we use? Are there any masonry requirements? How do they define masonry? Things like that are going to be dictated in these. Sometimes they'll actually stipulate what colors you can use. Just sort of depends. It's also common to see garage requirements. How many garage bays can be there? Does it have to be attached? What direction do those doors have to face? Things like that. And also, if there are any kind of the plan approval guidelines, is there a committee that we're going to have to submit plans to? What do those need to look like? Are they going to need a site map? Things like that. And also sometimes they do state requirements for construction. So it might tell us the hours that we can perform construction activity during. We're seeing some divisions actually come and say your concrete truck can weigh this much, and just different restrictions like that. So we just want to make sure that you guys have a copy of those and that we are able to review them. So all the fun paperwork.
All right. So we can pause for a couple of questions and things. I also want to be sure we address the timeframes that were asked about, maybe at least between initial deposit and this point, like site evaluation.
Leah was the one who's asking that.
Yeah. So Leah, first of all, thank you for trusting us and coming in and getting that done. First thing that happens is your sales consultant is going to be putting all those documents into our system so that everyone in our organization has access to them, and they can start working on things like plans, getting those things checked in. We'll start opening title, doing things like that. We'll start ordering flood information, different things like that. So that's all happening concurrently. Typically, probably the next phone call you get, depending on if your lot is cleared or not, would be from our site evaluation team. It's probably going to happen in a couple, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe less time than that, depending on exactly where you are. And they'll set up an appointment with you to meet you out at the property. And that's assuming we have a survey and, of course, a completed plan from our sales team. While that's happening, our cost analyst team is going to be checking the file in, making sure that what we drew is actually buildable, and that we can execute that in a really great way that you're going to love. And then when that happens, then it goes to our design and drafting team, and they start working on the actual plans, the file copy of the plans that you will sign on. That's the goal of that, is probably somewhere in around 4 weeks, less if possible. So those are some of at least the initial timeframes. I mean, our goal is to have you from deposit date to what we call release to construction in 130, 150 days, if possible. Some places take more. And if there's a city or a homeowner association that we have to submit to, sometimes that drags out a little longer, depending on the timing of when they meet. And we have some files that our customers get under construction within 90 days. So it really does depend, very specific to where you are, the subdivision, the governing municipalities, permitting, all that kind of good stuff. But those are kind of the short and long range goals of what we'd have on time frame wise.
Okay, awesome. Then we have Eric joining us saying greetings from Beaumont. Stuff is getting
Hey,
real around here. Framing is well underway.
that's
Awesome.
great. Yeah.
That's great. We've got Carlos. I know you can use the equity to build on land at the beginning of the process, but how does that same land equity work when it's time to close with the lender?
It's really no different. So what we're doing, Carlos, is we're establishing for you and for us what that equity position will be at closing. So it's a snapshot with the appraisal up front of what that is, and then that really shouldn't change that much, apart from if you're making monthly payments on that land, you would continue to do that during construction. So theoretically, you would have more equity once the house is finished. You're not going to be a whole lot more, but it is going to be more still. Your payoff will not be as high at the end. But when you close with the lender, it'll just basically be whatever the contract amount of our house is, less anything that is owed on the land. And it'll be those two amounts combined will be your total loan amount. There'll basically be two wires done, two checks cut, if you will. One will be to Tilson Homes from your lender for the contract price of the home. The other will be to whoever has the loan on the land, if there's a current loan on the land. So that, and then they get combined into one mortgage. That would be your 30-year permanent, 15 or 30-year permanent mortgage.
Okay. All right. We got Jason McDaniels checking in, saying, "Hey
What's
guys."
up,
Hey,
Jason?
We've got Leah saying Denton County requires the building permit to assign an address.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that doesn't shock me about Denton County. They're always looking for new ways to make things complicated. So that's fuzzy. I think it's all y'all,
Trying to
not me.
catch up.
It's not y'all. So anyway, yeah, that's interesting, because that's funny, because most counties, you have to fill in the address on the permit application. So I guess we'll leave that part blank in Denton County. Anyway, no problem, Leah. It's not going to be an issue. What they're really after is kind of a septic design. They want to make sure that there's some plan for what to do with the wastewater. Is it public water, public sewer? Is it a private well? Is it a septic system? Is it a public water and a septic system combination? So that's what they're really after, and that there's a plan to do with the wastewater. And then, of course, they have an address for you, so they have a place to send a tax bill. That's very important to them.
It is very important.
Yeah.
Of course, they got that when you bought the property, though, because they just sent it to
It's true. It's true.
your previous address. All right. We got Darren saying building in Angelina and Henderson County. The road was finished last week. Awesome. Nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
We got Kelly, who's building a Brazoria B in Como County, getting the permits, hoping to build by the new year.
Okay, let's go, Kelly.
Let's go. We got the Halloween hippie saying, "Wow, my house is coming along great. It's like the rock wall in LaSalle had a baby. It would be my house." Oh, I want to see that.
Beautiful, yeah.
That sounds great. And Darren's asking, what happens if the construction drive is too close to stakeout?
I want to be sure I understand this correctly. Like you don't have to have the construction drive in for us to do a stakeout appointment with you. So let's do that one first. We just need the construction drive in before we start construction. And in a lot of cases, we may have to have it, and probably do in your case.
We need that for soil testing.
Exactly. Before we can get geotech in there to do the soil test. So if you meant that, that's what that means. If you mean that the road is too close to the job site, that's no problem. That I've never heard a building superintendent complain that the road was too close to the job site. Usually the complaint is, what do I do with this distance between here and here? So we really like it, but within 20, 25 feet of the job site, if we can get it there, that's optimal. That gives us some space to kind of work around, stage some material. Any further than that, and we have a difficult time for trucks, maneuvering, turning around, because we're not talking about pickup trucks necessarily. We're talking about lumber trucks, dump trucks, concrete trucks, stuff that has the turning radius of a Bluebird bus. If you ever rode on a school bus when you were a kid, that's what we're talking about. So that hopefully that answers the question. If not, Mr. Crumpton, hit us back up and we'll do it.
Okay. Our friend from YouTube's asking, we want to have the house wired for Cat 6 cams smart home thing. Are we okay to have a contractor come do that for us after framing, or is it treated like the appliances when we opt for our own?
You can. What we need to do though is we need to be sure that our electrician isn't wired. So we do Cat 5e. I think this is fair, by the way. So we do Cat 5e typically. So we just want to be sure. Let your sales consultant know. I think it's Ashley, that you don't want us to do our Cat 5e. You don't want the electrician to do that. And yeah, we have no problem to do that. You want to communicate with the building superintendent. It'd be a great thing to cover at the pre-construction meeting. Is that, hey, look, I've got a low voltage, structured wiring company coming in that's going to run all my Cat 6, my cameras, my, kind of structured wiring panel somewhere they're going to be, and that's totally cool, no problem. But we don't want to do that and run Cat 5e to all the same locations.
Right. Yeah.
So, anyway, that's the only thing I would say about that, is just let her know so that we don't run that Cat 5e, because you certainly don't need both Cat 5e and Cat 6. Yeah, it's no problem. And actually it'll typically come probably after all that wire. So the HVAC, electrical, and plumbing are done, and then we have an inspector comes in and inspects the frame, the electrical, the HVAC, the plumbing. That's a great little lull right there that your superintendent will communicate with you of when to get that kind of stuff done. And all we ask is that they don't tap into any of our stuff. So like, we don't want them pigtailing off of one of our electrical outlets to put an outlet somewhere. If you want an outlet somewhere, tell Ashley, let us know, and we need to get the outlet there. That way there's no, hair splitting or arguing on when something may or may not be working. So that's all we ask.
Got it. And Mr. Crumpton says, yeah, he was talking about that it was too close to the job site. So no such thing. We're good. And Jason is saying, we went on a Tilson tour a couple weeks ago. I must say the Lone Star and Republic Grand Ranch is a stunning home. That is Tilson's finest builds, and I can't express how gorgeous it is.
Agreed.
She's pretty. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous, gorgeous house.
It is something. Okay, cool. Well, guys, keep dropping your questions into the chat. We'll answer every one of them. I'm going to kick us off on talking about utilities, which is a very important part and probably the most confusing part about it, because, well, utility companies are monopolies, so they don't communicate real good.
And that's why I let you talk about it.
Some are better than others. No doubt about it. So first things first, we got to have power. We are not off the grid, at least not yet. We need power to these job sites. You'll want power long term, particularly if you like this thing called air conditioning. You're going to be a huge fan of having power at your house long term. In doing so, there's a couple of different ways. So across Texas is a deregulated state, which means that there's nobody can tell them really what to do, there's not a uniform way across the state that power must be set up. There are codes and standards for safety, but there's no like thou shalt do it like this everywhere. So we see all kinds across the state. I'll kind of take you across this slide. So the first one here is a very traditional. So most power companies you're dealing with will be a co-op or a cooperative. There are some cases where you'll be dealing with the big boys, the CenterPoint Energies, the NRGs, the TXUs, Encores. But most of our customers are dealing with a cooperative of some sort, a Pedernales Electric Co-op, a Sam Houston Electric Co-op, a Guadalupe Valley Electric Co-op, a Grayson County Electric Co-op, Sam Houston. So one of those is who you're going to be predominantly dealing with. Good news, we've dealt with all of them and we can walk you through. So this is a very typical overhead power situation. So you can see way back in the back on this far left picture of the slide, there's a transformer on a pole. So this is a power line pole running this way. And this customer has opted for overhead power across their property to the job site. Job site's probably sitting about where the word power is. This is what's known as a temporary pole or T-pole. This is provided by our electrician. So what will need to happen is the power company will come in and they'll typically give you a price either per foot or by the pole of what they charge to get power from this transformer to where your home is going to be. And then our electrician will set the temporary pole. We set this, it's braced. We put a little meter can on it, a little 50 amp breaker with some outlets and plugs for our contractors to use. And we leave a spool of wire up at the top that the power company, once this is set and passes all their inspections, they will come and hook that up. That's what we will work off of during construction. And then later, there'll be either an overhead or underground power at the house itself. And the temporary pole will go away. Next one is definitely a Pedernales Electric Co-op, what's called a rack system or rack pedestal. So Pedernales, and they're not the only ones, but Pedernales has some very specifics of how they want it done. This will actually be built near the job site, probably not right on the house, but you can see there's two conduits coming or pipes coming out of the bottom of this. So this is where the power is coming in. So this pipe here is going either in front or behind here back to where the power source is. So whatever transformer, it may be one that's on a pedestal on the ground, the green thing you see in the ground, or it could be one like the far left here that's up on a pole. It could be going back to that. But power comes into this rack system here, goes through the meter, so they know how much you used, and then comes over to this side and there's a disconnect inside this panel, and it goes from here in this trench to the house. They also will provide a 110 outlet here for us to work off of, so we don't need a temporary pole in a case like this. In most cases, our electrician is going to be the one building this, so we need to get a bid done to do that. There are some cases where the PEC or Pedernales Electric Co has 5 different little fiefdoms. I don't know how else to call them, so forgive me, but that's what they are. That they, even those 5 don't do it the same way across
Perfect.
the entire Pedernales Electric Co-op. So all that to say, and again, we walk you through all this. Next one is a kind of a hybrid overhead underground situation. So this is actually a Mid-South Synergy cooperative. So kind of in your Western Montgomery County, Grimes County area. There's a transformer up on this electrical pole that's coming across, these power poles coming across the property. They came down, the co-op set this pedestal. This happens to be a 400 amp, but they do a 200 amp, 400 amp. They set the pedestal. There is a 110 outlet on the side, so very similar to this, and that we don't need a T-pole. We can work off this 110, and then the power is coming down underground here, going into here, and then this wasn't fit completely yet, and then there'll be a conduit that comes out of here and goes to the house.
Okay.
And then lastly is what's known as a member-owned pole. This is another very, very typical and common Pedernales Electric Co-op, where the member pays for and buys a permanent pole of sorts, and it'll sit here. There'll be a breaker box there, and then the breaker box can either be moved from here to the house, or you can go from here and there'll be a sub panel on the house, but the meter will stay put right here. In all these cases, these are now smart meters. They don't have to come out and actually like read the meters like it's 1996 anymore with the set of binoculars. Like, they're reported all the time if you have power or not, how many kilowatt hours you're using. It's all being recorded in a data center for them. But anyway, so we can walk you through this. Don't get overwhelmed with it. You have options, but you may not have as many options as you would like or that you think. So we can help you through that and get there. And yeah, do drop questions or comments in about power or any of the stuff into the chat. Folks will answer this. Or if you're confused about something, or if I don't explain it well, holler. Yeah, pray. Do that. Because Entergy's tough.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're based in Louisiana. That's why. So yeah, that's a thing. They stretch all the way to like the Woodlands. It's crazy. Like, he's in Beaumont, so I get it, right? But man, when you're in the Woodlands or Conroe and you're like, I'm calling
a little
Louisiana.
far.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever. I don't understand the politics behind it. I really don't want to, because I'm probably even more disappointed than I already am. But okay, so water. We gotta have water. We got running water. We got to flush commodes. We got to drink stuff. So you really have mainly 2 options. I do know that rainwater collection is kind of up and coming. It's still very rare. It does happen, but you're either going to have a water well, or so basically water is sourced from your actual property, or one that you may share with a neighbor or family member, or you're going to have a meter from some type of municipal entity or cooperative water supply, very similar to the electric co-ops. It's kind of a community water system. So it's either public. Yeah. So if you have public community water, there's going to be some type of a tap or meter fee so that they can set this thing. This is the community water side. They can turn this off and lock you out if you're not paying your bill. Same thing. These meters are now all smart meters. So how many gallons are cruising through here towards your house are calculated in your bill every month for them. The other option would be a water well. So this is this customer needed to drill a well. The well is actually this little bitty black part right here. This is your 4-inch concrete encased water well. This is just a pressure tank. So kind of just a miniature version of a water tower you may see in a small town in Texas, or not so small town in Texas. So it just keeps pressure so that you can have so that you're not relying on the submerged pump that's 300, 400, 500 feet in the ground to supply all your pressure. This has basically an air bubble in the top quarter of it that's maintaining pressure on your house pipes, so that this is not having to do all the work.
Okay.
And that's how that works. Next, we got to do, once we get water into the house, we have to figure out how we get water out of the house. The state of Texas is governed by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. They have ultimate say on how water leaves the house, what we do with the wastewater. You're either going to have public sewer if you're like one of 9% of our customers, you'll be on a public sewer system of some sort. If you're in a city, typically you're on a public sewer system, although not exclusively. Then your other option is going to be some sort of a on-site sewage facility, either a conventional or aerobic septic system. Conventional is old-fashioned, works by gravity flow, basically, unless you need a grinder pump, which is another tangential thing could happen. But it basically has a leach line. It has solid tanks, and then a leach line going out, relying solely on the soil and the sun to get rid of the wastewater, disinfect, all that kind of good stuff. Aerobic system, AEROBIC, an aerobic system would be some type of actual treatment. So there is aerobic bacteria, there's some type of a chlorination system, there's an aerator, so there is power required and all that kind of good stuff. There is some maintenance to them. It ain't a whole lot. But that is a literally miniaturized on-site sewage treatment facility, which you're seeing here in the picture below. This is an aerobic septic system. There are two types. There's a drip irrigation system that's kind of rare, but does happen from time to time, where they actually leach it into the ground. The most predominant one that we see all across the state is a spray head or surface application aerobic septic system, where there's 3 or 4 sprinkler heads, 2 or 3 sprinkler heads usually, that spray the wastewater after treated onto the surface, and then between the percolation of the soil and the sun itself, it dries it out, and you're all good to go. To do a septic system, the state does require some type of a septic permit. Every county has their own little process. Some require before you can start construction. Some require before you can get a building permit. Some don't require the permit till after the house is built. I think that's risky business. We're going to advise that you get the design done beforehand, because you don't want to run out of space after you have a house on slab there. So if we tell you something that's different from the county, maybe call us and let us sort it out. But there are some counties that actually don't require the septic permit until you go to put the septic system in. Good luck with that. So I just think it's risky. Anyway,
let's have permission for that ahead of time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a pretty simple process. Has to be done by a registered sanitarian or a professional engineer. They can knock it out. Your county probably has an approved list of designers and installers for their county that they work with all the time, and can get this done. We have a list of approved ones. It's on TCEQ's website. This is not hard to get done. We have tons that we work with all the time, and we walk you through this process. There are some documents that you will have to sign as the actual landowner, so don't let that freak you out. I mean, we do as much as we can for you, but there's for instance, the state requires an affidavit to the public if you're going to be spraying wastewater onto your property. You'll have to sign that. It has to be notarized. It's literally a statement to the public, like, hey, I'm spraying wastewater onto my property. That's all it says.
Yeah.
Next and last is if you're not going to be total electric, which most of our home buyers are, but if you're not going to be, you're going to have some type of a fuel source for cooking, heating, water heaters, things like that. It'll either be natural gas or it will be propane. Most of our customers are propane because they're out in a rural area. There are some rural areas that do have natural gas run out there, but most areas are going to be on some type of LP or liquid propane. And there'll be a tank of some sort if you do that. If it's going to be natural gas, there'll be a meter there. just like you would see in a subdivision, things like that, and a line to the house. Propane, you have a tank. It can be above ground or it can be buried. You could buy them. You can lease them. There's some options there. Some subdivisions, like Don was saying on deed restrictions earlier, they do require they be buried. They don't want to see them, or they may require they be screened. In other words, some type of a lattice work or bushes around them where you can't see them. But we can, again, walk you through that. There's not really advantage, disadvantage of either. Some of the leases that I've seen actually include like refills at a certain fixed price. So that's kind of cool. If you time it right, you want to fill this puppy up in June, July, August in Texas. You don't want to be filling it up in January, February if you can help it. Prices do fluctuate. You don't believe me? Ask Andy Allard in the chat. He can walk you through that, and you will fall asleep before he's done.
That's his specialty.
Oh yeah, he's the guy that prays for hurricanes and disruption. He's a different kind of cat. Anyway, so that's how that is handled, and that rounds us out on our utilities. Anything we want to talk about utilities before we get into site access?
We do have a few questions, so I think let's go ahead and answer those.
Fire them up. I'm going to do a throat clearing, and we're going to get after
see. Both Denise and Mr. Wiggins are curious about if my power is going to be underground, do I still need a temporary pole?
So it depends. So because as you showed as I showed on the examples, the underground could be from their overhead pole to the house. And that's how mine's done, by the way. Like I have overhead power lines running through my land. And then from one of them, they put a transformer on it. They went down that pole, put a pedestal in underground, and then I ran underground from there to my house. If it's underground, then not necessarily. And it depends on what kind of pedestal they set. So if it's that little, let me go back, Dawn.
Okay.
So let's say that they're doing something like this. Like this is probably totally and completely underground from the source, from the power lines of the company to the house. In that case, this little 110 outlet right here, that's all we're going to need for temporary power. This is kind of a little hybrid. Okay, spoiler, this is my house. Okay, I'm not very creative when it comes to pictures. I walk outside and send it to Dawn.
That's why he knows exactly what amp that is.
Exactly. I can tell you everything about this one. I can tell you where my fiber line runs. I can all this stuff. So in this case, the power is running overhead through the property, but we didn't want it running overhead to the house. So Mid-South comes and sets this pedestal. And again, they have this little 110 outlet here. So in these, really all three of these cases, we don't need a temporary power pole. Temporary poles are not expensive. We don't buy them from the electrician. They use them over and over and over again. So they'll take this thing because it's temporary. They'll break it down. They'll wreck these little braces and they'll haul it to the next job site. So it's not like a big extra cost or something you need to worry about a place for it. But more and more we are seeing
because the other three that you're showing are actually permanent. Like
exactly.
That's staying
These
there.
are permanent. Yeah. So great question.
Okay. Leah is asking how long are our extension cords? Because they're putting in a rack about 1,000 feet from the build site, and the plan is to bury the cable from the rack. Yeah,
so it'll need to be closer than that. So on 1,000 feet, you can lose a tremendous amount of amperage. There is a drop. There's a calculation for that. I don't have it. I'm sure you can Google it. The first one you're going to find is probably not true. It'll be on the third page of Reddit that you find the actual one that's accurate. But 1,000 feet's a long way. So I'm like 300, 350, something like that. Not a huge deal. Once you start to step out over 500 or 600 feet, 1,000 feet, there is now all that means is they need to use bigger wire. But extension cords are going to struggle on 1,000 feet. We'd really like to see it get within about 300, 400 feet of the house. We'd be way more comfortable with that. 300 can be accommodated. We just probably need it closer than 1,000 feet. And again, I'm not too concerned long term, but you're going to have a lot of amperage drop, particularly with extension cord. Most extension cords, I think the biggest ones you can get is like a 10 gauge. Okay. They're heavy, they're expensive, and even then, you're probably going to have some. So here's how I envision this. I know construction will kill me. Forgive me, Justin. What I envision is probably 300 or 400 feet of extension cord to a compressor, right, for a framer, and then 300 or 400 feet of I've seen it now, but 300 or 400 feet of air compressor hose. Like I've seen all. I've seen stuff that I'm not going to share on Facebook or YouTube for fear that our entire show could be banned. So
Fair enough.
we'll figure it out.
We don't want to get shut down. Mr. Wiggins is asking, does the rainwater system need to be built at the same time as the house?
No, it does not. Absolutely not. No, we've seen people that do it after the fact. We have seen a few that do it. They have it done right at the tail end of it. We do recommend way at the end because it's usually part of a gutter system. So we prefer probably our final grade be completed before, because I don't know if you're going to bury your tanks. I don't know what the grade is, or you're going to have, drums at the corners or the valleys that collect the rainwater, or using a pump type system. So I don't recommend having that done until the house is finished. All the final grade is done, maybe even after you close, quite frankly. I prefer to see the rainwater as a backup, not a.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are going to have some way of having water during construction. So if that is
it's exactly
your
right.
total water solution, we're going to have to bring some in.
Yep. Great point.
Okay. All right. And both Janet and Mr. McDaniel are asking, do we put in sewer now or after the build? Like when's the timing on installing our sewer and our septic?
Okay, so I will answer them separately because they.
I was going to say, sorry, I realized she's asking about sewer, he's asking about septic. So
yeah. So sewer, we're going to need to know that pretty early on. It doesn't have to be hooked up first, but and maybe she doesn't actually have. Maybe she is actually on septic. But let's Janet, for your case, it will help us out if we can talk about sewer, if you forgive us. So we're going to need to locate that. We need the help of the city. We'll contact them, reach out to them, have them come do a location. How deep is the tap? Where is the sewer tap? Is it where they show it is on their maps? It's not gonna be. And then after they come out and locate it and verify that it's not where they said it was on their maps, then we'll do a calculation to make sure that we have enough fall from our sewer stub out of the house to that sewer tap. If there's not a tap already on the lot, they are going to charge you for a sewer tap. Worst case scenario, if the sewer tap's on the other side of the road, we have seen cities that require the customer pay for a road bore to go under the road so that you can have a sewer tap on your side. And they'll have a list of bonded companies that are approved by the city to do that. There's no way they're related to anyone who works at the city. Not a chance. Never works like that. Never happens. And then, but that's pretty rare in worst case. It does happen, but it's very, very rare. The alternatively, so that will need to be at least sorted out prior to we start construction. Most importantly, because we need to know where our sewer stub needs to be height-wise on this out where it comes out of the slab of our home,
right?
Because we need it to go downhill. That's very important to do that. So that's sewer. We won't hook it up till very end of construction typically, but we do need to know where it needs to be. That actually is not all that different from septic. We still need to know, this is why we do the permitting beforehand, the design beforehand. We don't recommend the septic be installed beforehand. We want the septic to be installed basically when we're done with the outside of the home. So if your home has brick or stone, after the brick or stone's on the house. If your house is all hardy, after the house is painted and maybe the roof is on, that's and maybe even after the AC is set, but probably before that, have to start working on it. They're not usually close to one another, but in the rare occasion that the septic's really, really close to where compressor is going to be, we might ask you to wait. But basically, when we're done with the outside part of the house, that's a great time to go ahead and start lining up your septic installer to come out there, mainly because there's going to be a time frame or maybe a lag for weather or his or her availability. The county has to come out and inspect before they can cover it up. So they'll come out, they'll dig the hole, they'll set the septic, hook it all up, and then they have to leave the hole open, which is an invitation for rain because that's how nature works. But the county has to come out and verify that we put in what we permitted, what we said we were going to put in. And then once they've approved that, sign off on it, then we can come and backfill on top of that septic system. But we don't want to be driving around on that with a bunch of heavy equipment, especially the sprinklers out in the spray field. We just prefer that we be kind of done with the heavy equipment part outside of the home before that goes in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Then we've got Kelly saying, we will have PEC. Has anyone hired an outside person to add the poles and dig the trench? Heard it's cheaper than having an electric company do it.
It depends, Kelly, but the answer is yes, we have. It's funny. I was just getting a call from Jeff Waite, so we can reach out to Jeff and maybe ask him, phone a friend. But yeah, it really depends on which of the fiefdoms you're in. If you send us you're on YouTube. If you reach out through the website or maybe a private message through one of the other gazillion social medias that we're on, we can probably get you in contact with maybe one of our site evaluators that can help, or a sales consultant. Maybe your sales consultant can actually help do that. But we have seen instances, maybe not specifically to PEC, although perhaps. But I know one very recently that came up with San Bernard Electric Co-op, where the co-op was infinitely cheaper than an electrician can do it for. So what they're betting on is that, wisely, so congratulations, San Bernard, but that you will be paying them indefinitely every month for the rest of your life, and someone maybe even after you. So they kind of like, hey, look, this is kind of just the cost of doing business, which was really the spirit behind cooperatives. Like, it was, hey, look, we're not really a for-profit organization. We're just here so the community can have power. You technically become a member when you join, so you may get a dividend at the end of the year. Anyway, they kind of help you out in a way that really an electric company couldn't compete with them to do that in a profitable way. So, but that's not how they work everywhere. So just be prepared.
Okay. Denise is asking if you guys are doing the septic, will you supply everything needed for the permit and approvals?
Yes, we do it all. Everything but your signature. We're not doing that, Denise. We're not playing your games.
Yeah, we don't.
But everything else, we're providing.
No forgery. Julie is asking, what if you already have a septic and plan to live on the property during the build? But I think you might have just answered this.
Well, no. And by the way, shout out to the Key West southernmost point buoy down there. I recognize that.
Nice.
So you would need, when you get that permitted, and maybe you already have it done. Let's say that you're going to live on the property either in a mobile home, a travel trailer of some sort, or RV, motorhome, or in a barn-do type of thing, metal building shop that the county is unaware you have a living area in and don't care if they do. So let's say that's what's happening. You would want to permit that septic system to accommodate that you're going to live in addition to whatever home you're proposing to build. So it's very important they could handle that it was designed to handle that many gallons per day. It's going to be a big deal. You're basically adding one bathroom, if that, one bedroom, one bathroom. And ironically, they do it by number of bedrooms, not bathrooms necessarily. They take it into consideration, but bedrooms is more important to them because it tells how many people could possibly be living in the home. So for instance, extreme, but a 3-bedroom, 2-bath might actually have a lighter design from a septic standpoint than a 5-bedroom, 1-bath, because a 5-bedroom, 1-bath could still have as potentially 5 bedrooms filled up with people doing showers and tubs and washing clothes and washing dishes, and it's the gallons per day they're concerned with. How many gallons per day can your soil sustain? So that's what they're worried about. But as long as it's designed from the beginning to accommodate both buildings or both things, you're going to be in good shape.
Okay, perfect. And then Jason is sharing that Encore is cheap for installing their stuff because it's free up to 200 feet.
That's cool. Yep, that's awesome.
Yeah, very good.
Let's talk site access. Keep dropping your question in the chat. This is always one that sparks a lot of questions, so that's cool.
Yes.
Keep them coming. All-weather access. That's what we need. We need all-weather access. We can do it. You can do it, but it needs to be where, I'm not worried about accessing anything right now because it hasn't rained anywhere in Texas really in many, many weeks.
But now that you've said that, it will.
Bring it on. So, but not like Florida's getting it. Like, we just need this. Just a little bit.
Moderation. We would like it in moderation.
Everything in moderation, especially moderation. So we want all weather access. We want it means exactly what it says, folks. It's when it's wet, kind of muddy. We're bringing heavy equipment in. A dump truck weighs 40,000 pounds. Concrete truck weighs 80,000 pounds. A regular half-ton pickup truck probably weighs 5,000 or 6,000 pounds. So we're talking significant weight that we want to be able to sustain and get in, and more importantly, get out off of the property. A culvert is a big fancy word for just a pipe in the ground. So you'll notice roads have ditches on each sides of them to let water flow through, to keep the crown of the road good, keep the road from washing out. You got to cross that somehow. Culvert's just a pipe that's dropped into the ground to allow water to continue to flow through. The county is responsible for setting that in almost all cases, or city if you're in one. And then and there are some cases where it has to be permitted. If you're on a state highway or farm to market road, it must be permitted by Texas Department of Transportation, by Texas office where you are. It's not too tough. Well, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, shouldn't be too tough. Most cases it's not. Some cases it is, but it's not a huge deal. Site planning and preparation. So we're going to meet you at the property very early on and do a site evaluation, meet you out there at the property. We're going to help you kind of draw a little site plan. We're going to meet you, ask you what direction you want the house to face. Is this the ideal view off the back covered porch that you wanted? Is this the ideal view of your master bedroom that you wanted? Is this what your breakfast you want to be looking at? We'll help you through all that. We'll help you locate utility stubs, where the septic's probably going to be, where power is going to be coming in. We take some measurements out there. We shoot some grade shots. Want to make sure that we can establish positive drainage all the way around the house so that we don't have water running on any porches or water standing against the foundation anywhere. And then kind of leave with a list of site preparation, clearing, things need to be done. So this is what happens at that meeting. We do meet you out there. Obviously, this is your land. We've not seen it. You have. We certainly are going to take your thoughts into consideration. We're going to give you some feedback. So I'd say enter this appointment with an open mind. Be open to, hey, if I can help you, if I can move the house 12 feet this way and maybe turn it 15 degrees, I can probably save you some money. If not, you're like, nope, I want to be looking at this oak tree when I'm sitting right here. We're like, no problem.
Perfect.
Roll with it. Yep. That's what we're here to do. So we'll all list with a list of responsibilities we're going to do. So you'll have a little to-do list. We'll have a little to-do list. And that'll be given to both the new home coordinator as well as your sales consultant. We'll be following up with you, kind of helping make sure you have what you need. If you need any assistance from us, if you need bids from us, if you need contractors from us, we'll help you through all that kind of stuff. But, kind of marking trees and all that kind of good stuff, making sure that we're far enough off the property lines, building lines, and, how far away the utilities are, the water, electric, all that kind of good stuff. This is kind of a more fancy site plan. So some subdivisions will require that we submit a scaled drawing site plan like this that has all the various things located on it. It's not much different from this one here in the middle. It's just done in AutoCAD. So,
Yep.
But this is derived from this. So, but they'll want us to locate where the proposed driveway is going, prove that we're, how many feet off of the property line and building lines that we are, where we're proposing to put the septic tanks, the air condensing units, the proposed septic spray field, what size culvert we're doing, all that kind of stuff. We can locate on there and do that. If the subdivision requires it, or city, this is what we do.
Right.
But this is sufficient. All right. And then lastly, site clearing. So we can arrange this, or you can have it arranged. We can give you contractors to speak to. We have a lot of contractors that we do this all the time with, so we can help you through that. But yeah, we will need to get all of the really organic material out from inside the footprint of the slab for sure. There may be some trees that have to come out if they're too close to the foundation, just roots and amount of water they use and things like that. We'll have an engineer look at that when they're designing the foundation. But certainly if it's inside the footprint, the tree has to come out as well as the stump. So don't let somebody come out there like, oh, I'll just clear cut all the trees, and the stump's got to come out too, all of it. And then groundwork. So any needed dirt work, we prepare that. Some places we do dirt pads, some places we build to the added level. Depends on where you're building, kind of what we do, what's typically included. Your sales consultant can help you through that. And then lastly, we make sure that the drainage work is in place, like we talked before, to make sure that water flows away from the house in all directions. And then after all of this development stuff is done, now we can actually start construction on your home. So we come out, we set forms and do the make ready, put the plumbing in, and a whole different seminar presentation for that you can catch. And in summary, we got 1 minute to spare. Boom. So, folks, now, any other questions? We want to answer those. Of course, we want to do that. If you have questions about any of the things that we've covered, ask them now. I know that we have a few things going on. We can talk about the Angleton models that are very, very, very close to being done.
Very close. Yes.
So close. We have a grand opening coming up.
We do.
So we can talk about that a little bit. So Dawn, take us away what we're talking about and it's coming up. Seminars, grand openings, things like that. Folks, while she's doing that, we'll make it a last call for questions. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. and we will answer them. Dawn, what do we have?
All right. So this weekend we do have an in-person seminar in our Waco office. So they're going to be talking about all the different financing programs that are available with Tilson. So that is a great one if you're kind of wondering how does all of that work? How am I going to pay for this? All of those questions. Those ladies will be happy to answer those for you. Like Eric mentioned, we are almost done. We are in like the final decorating, landscaping phases with our 2 new models in Angleton. So they are open and they are touring, and they're almost done. So 2 beautiful new models, the Arlington and the Refugio. The Refugio actually has a screened-in porch, which is unique to our models. So it's a good one to go and check out. And then, as he mentioned, Jason was mentioning the Lone Star, and that is the model that is out in Republic Grand Ranch. So we are doing their grand opening celebration. It's going to be on October 19th, and that registration is open now. If you want to register for it, we're going to have our construction team out to do the presentation that Eric said. Hey, you can catch that presentation. That's where you can catch it. So they're going to talk about all the stages of the construction and why we do things the way we do, and the materials that we use. And you can come see that absolutely gorgeous model. And we are going to have I believe it's a burger truck out there. So we'll be having lunch. Both Eric and I will be there, as well as the construction team, the sales team, everybody to come and greet you. And we've got some cool giveaways and stuff as well if you want to come meet us there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'd love to meet you guys there. Come see us. We will be there. And yeah, if it's burgers, my son's probably coming too.
Awesome. Always love to see Jacob.
He loves free food. So.
We got Jason saying he is headed to the Easy Buy seminar in Waco this weekend, and then we'll start signing paperwork. Awesome. That's exciting.
That's cool, Jason.
And we've got Abraham asking, what do I have to do if my lot has a lot of slope?
Abraham, you don't do anything. So good news. We've been building in the Texas Hill Country since the early 1960s. So we have a lot of experience with out of level lots or sloped lots. We have a lot of different solutions. In fact, in Republic Grand Ranch, we try to demonstrate a couple of different solutions. We have a dirt pad there. We have a retaining wall there. And then we built to an out of level. Traditionally, what we see, I don't know where in the state you're building, but traditionally what we see is that's in the Hill Country or Central Texas, and it's typically it's just built to the out of level. So they literally just set forms up to make it level with the high point, usually 11 to 14 inches above the high point of the property, build it out level and go from there. But we will shoot those grade shots and have that answer when we do the site evaluation. We're very, very accustomed to doing that. The good news is it doesn't really matter who ultimately builds your house. The lot will be the same. You might as well work with somebody who's done it a lot, no pun intended, for many, many, many years. So we can help you through that.
Absolutely. And that is the last question I see.
Fantastic. Well, guys, scan the QR code. We'd love to see you in Republic Grand Ranch. You've got to check that model out. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. And the design center and the whole thing. It's a whole estate that we've built out there. Worth the trip. We'd love to see you. Thank you all for watching us today. Dawn, thanks for putting this together.
Yeah.
And we hope that this was helpful for you guys. We want you to reach out to us. It doesn't end here, right? We got the website. We got 12 design centers open 7 days a week. We got an Instagram page. We got a Facebook page. We got a YouTube channel with tons and tons and tons of information and content on there to just binge on and watch and learn. Ask us questions there. The questions don't end here. But that's what we're here for, is an education source for you guys to just make this process simpler and more familiar for y'all and make it pleasant for you and your family, because we want this for you. We want you to fulfill this dream. So thank you for watching. We hope you got something good out of this and hope to soon make you part of the Tilson family. We'll talk to y'all later.
Bye, everybody.